Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the Rona Rants, a place where I give my unsolicited opinion on several different topics, and it might be good or bad. But if it's bad, you can go and fuck yourself, because I don't think any of my opinions are bad. You know, they might be a bit uneducated, but they're not bad. Um, yeah, I think this is podcast number 6. And I want to start off by thanking everyone for the feedback and all the comments that I got. Really appreciate it. And keep commenting away. If you disagree with me, go ahead. I love that. I love fighting. So you can just put it somewhere. And yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about what kind of format I want to go with the show. And I'm getting a clearer and clearer idea as things progress. So I'll try to be more consistent. I'm going to make some changes as well. Yeah, thanks everyone. Second thing, I put the podcast on Spotify now. So I think that's a big improvement because now, I will link this, by the way. It's a big improvement because YouTube is super annoying. Like, you can't just play, you can't play videos in the background while you do other things. And the whole point of the podcast is to do that, right? I mean, I don't expect you guys to sit down in front of the TV and just listen to my voice. Like, you can do other stuff while you listen to me, right? So that's the best part. And yeah, that's it. I want to talk to you guys today about a topic that rings really true to my heart, or it hits close to home. I don't know the expressions in English. It's something like this. It's a topic that means a lot to me, I guess, because it's related to one of my biggest flaws, my biggest character flaws, and I think a lot of people suffer from this as well. So I wanted to give my thoughts on it, and I'll start by just mentioning like the name that the term that I got from this, or fucking hell, the term that I got for this syndrome comes from actually a video game, and it's called Toonitis. All right, Toonitis. So let me first explain what Toonitis is. So this term, believe it or not, comes from a really nerdy video game, because I used to be really into really nerdy video games. I'm still into them, but I just don't play them, right? So I think even if you don't play games, you've heard about World of Warcraft. And World of Warcraft is like this big role-playing game. You know, it's like a big world where you go in with your character, and like you create a character, and you go on adventures and quests, and you level up your character, and you interact with a lot of other players online. So that's why it's so addicting. And yeah, it's got a bunch of bullshit attached to it, but it's super addicting. But so I used to play that when I was a teenager, and I played it with some friends of mine that I met online, which turned out not to be creepos and pedophiles, because I met them in real life, and they're cool. They're my friends now, I guess. Yeah. So the thing about this game is that basically what happens is, or in the past it was like this, you would create a character, and you had like a specific level cap to reach, so you would create your character, and this character has a certain race. They call it race because there were several different types of animal or creatures in the world. And then you would have a thing called class, which is kind of like the thing you specialize in for combat. Like, you could be a healer or some kind of monk. You could be a mage. You could be a warrior, a druid, and and many other classes. And so you pick like a combination of these, and then you can customize the character, and then you create your character, and then the idea is that you would level up your character either with friends or alone by doing quests or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You would just level up your character, and you do things in the game to like learn the story, a bit about the story, or to fight other people or whatever. But the idea is that you have a character and you pick that character and you go all the way to the level cap, right? And then you do the stuff at what they call the end game. So when you reach that level cap, um, that's what you're supposed to do. If you want to, then you could also create a new character and you don't have to stick to the first character. But the thing is, what a lot of people suffered from, and this includes me, was what we call Toonitis. And Toonitis, basically what it means or what it refers to is like toon means cartoon, so that's referring to the character, and itis is like, yeah, I don't know. It's just a stupid name for a syndrome where you keep creating new characters. So instead of making one character and sticking to that character, what would happen is you would make one character, you customize it, whatever, you give it the perfect name, and you would level it up, and then you would just get sick of it. Like, you would get tired of using the same character all the time, or the class you were doing, and so you would be like, okay, fuck it, I wanna do something else, I wanna explore some new horizons and whatever. So then you would pick a second character. So you would start a second new character, customize it, and give it a new class or a new race, and you would just go a completely different path. And so you would make this new character and you would level up quite a bit, could be with your friends or alone. And then again, it would happen the same thing. So you would just start getting addicted to making new characters all the time. So that's what people called Toonitis back in the day. And I suffered heavily from it, And this kind of like, it affected my experience back then because I couldn't commit to a character. And so I didn't level up with my friends at the time, and I didn't do the stuff with my friends, or I would force them to like do the same. And this sounds like a bullshit problem, but in my opinion, it's worth talking about because it's like, if you have this problem, it shows a lot about yourself as a person. And I think Toonitis is applicable to many other things in life. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, because it's one, like, Toonitis, which in my opinion is like lack of discipline and lack of commitment to things, is like one of my biggest flaws. And it's one of the things that I'm trying to work on the most now that I'm a bit older and very wise. Yeah, so how does Toonitis apply to real life? Well, for example, are you a person that never stuck to one hobby? Like, are you always jumping from hobby to hobby? And I don't mean like hobbies, like gaming or watching series or reading, because those are more like consuming hobbies. I mean more like creative hobbies or hobbies that require effort from your side. Do you find yourself constantly jumping from hobby to hobby or activity to activity? So let's say that you, maybe for 1 or 2 months, you play golf, and then you change to tennis, and then you try soccer, football, and then you try volleyball, and then, you go parasailing, whatever. And it could be anything, could be other types of activities as well. But if you find yourself doing this a lot, and you don't think it's a flaw, like you're just comfortably trying new hobbies, maybe you should look a bit into yourself, because sure, you could be trying several different hobbies to find one hobby that you really like, but I can argue that perhaps the reason why you don't like a certain hobby is because you just didn't commit enough to it, and you didn't this sounds like bullshit. No, okay, wait. What I want to say is this. Yes, there can be hobbies that you start and maybe you just don't like them enough, and it's totally fine to quit them. Absolutely. All right? I can agree with that. But I think many times people quit things. It doesn't have to be a hobby. It can be like a goal, like some kind of New Year objective, and they quit on this goal, and they don't quit because they don't like it anymore. They think they don't like it anymore, but it's because they don't know how to push through. And so they find a new brand hobby to start, because the start is the most interesting part. It's the most exciting part. Like when you start something new, like, oh shit, I can learn all of these things. Wow, so much new stimuli. Man, this like I can see myself going down this road, whatever, blah blah blah. You just envision yourself in these situations, right? And that's really addicting. Like the jumping from one activity to one activity is really addicting. You know, the start is really addicting, but this lack of commitment and lack of I don't want to always say discipline, because it sounds almost negative, like, oh, you don't have discipline, you don't have discipline, you bring dishonor to family. um you know, that was my Japanese accent attempt. um yeah, it's a problem, I think. And to me, it's been a constant in my life, you know? Like, before, when I was younger, my parents forced me to play instruments that I didn't want to play. I was actually in a kind of a music school. Um, cons- in Portuguese, it's conservatório. I don't know how it is in English. Could it be conservatorium? I have no idea. It's a school that has some musical inclinations, you know? And and so we would get exposed to many different instruments, and yeah, you could just try whatever you want. And just one second, getting some water. I'm a bit sick, and for some reason my throat is always dry. Maybe it's the Rona. Um, yeah, so you would try many different instruments, and back then I was forced to do it. But you know, I went through a couple of instruments and I enjoyed it. Like first it was the cello, and then it was the violin, and then I think briefly guitar, and then briefly piano, and I just jumped through all of them. I didn't like any of them. And then later again, I had guitar with my brother. We had the same teacher, but we basically got kicked out of the class because we didn't practice enough. And and then I had many different activities that I joined. You know, I had karate, whatever you call it, and and that was nice for a while. But then when things got a bit, I got a bit annoyed at my professor, and that was enough for me to quit. You know, like something that I loved, I just got a bit annoyed at my teacher, and I quit. You know, and I was always quitting like new things, and trying new things and quitting, trying and quitting, trying and quitting. Like, I really regret that. And it's not something that I blame my parents for, because I think even if they forced me, I would have hated it and I would have left at some point. Like, you see this a lot. I have a lot of friends who have played, for example, piano for 10 plus years, and you know, their parents maybe pushed it a lot, and then they suddenly quit at some point. You know, like in university, they just quit. So I don't think pressuring your kids is the solution. Like, maybe maybe what you can do is teach them how to be more committed to something. Um, possibly possibly be something that you can do. Um, yeah. So for many years, I kind of just ignored the fact that I was jumping from hobby to hobby. I always thought that the problem was that I didn't find the thing that I wanted to do, or the things that I wanted to do in my free time. But honestly, I really think it was just like lack of mental training. Let's put it like this. Because even, for example, exercise, I would change like exercise routines and do completely different things all the time, and quit. And it just wasn't consistent, you know? Um, and then now, like, I was lucky because some people pointed out that, in fact, I was really inconsistent. And so now I've put an effort into changing this. But yeah, if you're a person that has Toonitis, like I am, then I think there's definitely a solution. I'm working on it now. I'm seeing results. I'm not a guru, by the way, so I'm going to give advice, but it doesn't mean that I'm right. It works for me. But And yeah, I just wanna say that I think there's a solution to this problem that everyone can apply, and yeah, we can talk about it in a bit. But first, I want to talk about, because it's kind of related. It's related to this. I want to talk about my recent fasting experience. So I underwent. Can I say it? I think I could say it. I underwent a 20 no a 48-hour fast. All right. So what that means is for 48 hours I can't eat anything with calories. I can't ingest anything that has a single calorie. Um so basically it was just water for me. Like I could also have black coffee or tea. And before you think, why the fuck would you do that? Are you fucking stupid? Let me explain. Right. So some months ago, I had looked into intermittent fasting, and that was, it was a friend told me about this, and I had already seen it before, but I never really considered doing it in the past. And apparently, it's a pretty effective technique at you for fat loss. Um, what did I want to say? It's an effective technique for fat loss that basically doesn't force you to change your eating habits that much. It just it just forces you to eat within a certain window of time, you know? So the most common intermittent fasting method is like 8 hours to 16 hours. So that means that within an 8-hour window you eat, and in a 16-hour window you just don't eat at all. You fucking starve. And I did that for quite a few months. It didn't actually work for me. Probably because I was eating like shit within the window. Perhaps if I restricted my calories a little bit, it would have been great. But yeah, it didn't work for me. It wasn't something that I enjoyed doing either. Um, but I know that it works for a lot of people. So yeah, I wanted to try it, and that's what I did. So then, when I was looking into that, I I I noticed that there was a study. Um, like some people would do 24-hour fasts, and some people even went up to 48, 72 hours, and some crazy people go even for longer. Um, so I remember reading that, but I remember that up to 48 hours, you wouldn't have like considerable muscle loss, and and yeah, apparently there are some benefits to it. Like that's what they talk about. Although my parents were against it, like I later talked to them before I did it, and they were super against it. The 48-hour one, not the 24-hour one. But apparently, like when you stop eating, um, your your body goes into an autophagy. It eats itself. It goes into an autophagy mode. So your body starts eating itself, which sounds terrible. But essentially, you don't have a calorie intake, so you need to get calories from somewhere, because your body uses energy, right? And your fuel is food. So one of the first places that it goes to is your fat reserves. It also goes into your muscles, but mostly it's your fat reserves. And not just this happens, but a lot of your cells, they they consume dead cells, and they renew themselves. This is what I understood. I might be completely wrong, but this is what I understood. Apparently this process, and also the fact that you don't eat for a while, can be like a cleanse, quote unquote. I'm not saying it's 100% healthy to do, but some studies claim that it is actually healthy, at least a 24-hour one. Like it can improve your um I don't know what the term is in English, like your lifespan in a way. It can lengthen your lifespan because um your body, like, I don't want to say cleans itself. That sounds really new age bullshit. But it's somehow um auto regulate, like it regulates itself. Because if you're constantly eating, which was something that was not always accessible to humans back in the day, you weren't. I think humans back in the day were not constantly eating. They would sometimes eat and sometimes go through periods of fasting. That's why some studies suggest that especially intermittent fasting is quite healthy for us. And eating, basically, the argument is that eating all the time at regular periods is not as healthy as people believe. Anyway, yeah, I went through a 48-hour fast, and I gotta say I don't recommend it. It was mostly out of curiosity. I wanted to see how it was and if it brought me any benefits. And I like I do track my body fat, so I did lose like 0.5%, but that was over a course of a week, and I also ate some fast food and whatever. But I think it was a big contributor to this, and yeah, but it was really hard. Like the first 24 hours were the first 24 hours were a bit painful, but not too painful. And by painful, I mean mentally painful, because it wasn't physically painful. It was like, what I've told my friends is that it feels like you skipped breakfast and lunch, and you always get that permanent feeling, you know? It's not like a hunger that escalates. It doesn't go into spikes. It's just like, because you know that you're not getting food, so basically your body kind of plateaus at this level of like, fuck, I haven't eaten yet. I didn't eat that breakfast and lunch. It kind of sucks. But yeah, for the first 24 hours, it's okay. Like, you just have this slight uncomfortable feeling. And then after the 24 hours, that's when it gets messed up. Like, so what I did was on Thursday, probably not the best timing, but whatever. I didn't want to fuck up my entire weekend with this. So on Thursday, I had a big lunch. So that was at 1:30. I finished at 1:30. And then I started the fast. So what this means is that 24 hours later, on Friday at 1:30, I was completely fine. And I woke up fine. But then as the day went on Friday, like, things just got worse and worse. So I didn't get those huge hunger pangs, which makes me believe that this, the feeling of hunger is very psychological. Because, like, for example, if you skip breakfast and you want to have lunch at a certain time, and you ordered food, but your food hasn't arrived yet, and you expected it to come at a certain time, then you get massive, like, hunger. You feel so bad. You feel like, fuck, my stomach hurts. I want food, like, you're really expecting it to come at a certain time. It doesn't come. You're like, shit, this sucks. Like, I didn't experience that, and I think it's because my brain was always like, yeah, I'm not getting food, so no point, doing this. And funnily enough, like, when the 48 hours were finishing, that's when my hunger was at its highest, because I expected that I would get food, after a certain amount of time. Anyway, the Friday night was terrible. Like, I had insomnia. I couldn't, like, before that I was watching a TV show, and I was reading a book, and I couldn't concentrate that well. I was feeling not weak, but I was feeling kind of in a daze, and I was constantly planning ahead my next meal. I was always thinking like, fuck, I want to have a burger. I want to have a fucking juicy burger, please. I'm gonna get some fries. I'm gonna get 2 burgers. I'm gonna get some pizza. Oh yeah, fuck yeah. I want some fucking burgers, And I was just constantly thinking about fucking burgers. I'm not even that big of a burger fan. Like, I'm more of a pizza person. But at that time, I definitely wanted a burger. And and I went to bed, and I fell asleep, but then I woke up at like 5, and like, oh, my stomach was growling, and I just couldn't sleep. I was just constantly thinking about food, and it never happened to me in my life. It was a very interesting experience, very curious experience, and yeah. So I suffered that morning. Again, as I said, no physical pain, but like mental anguish. And eventually the 48 hours passed, and I had a big ass meal. And yet, it was burgers. Um, so would I recommend it? Like I said, I don't recommend the 48 hours. I do recommend the 24 hours every now and then because it's really not that hard, and you do feel good actually. Like I did feel, I felt like during this time, despite the days phase, where I was feeling kind of weak, kind of like distracted. Um, I felt like my brain was really fast. That I didn't feel sluggish at all. And my productivity didn't go down on Friday. I guess because it wasn't that late when I was working. During the morning, it was quite fine, and even after the afternoon was fine. Um, so yeah, I recommend the 24-hour one if you want to try it out. And the reason why this topic connects to the other one is because part of the reason, there were two reasons as to why I wanted to try it. The first one was that I was just curious. I was curious. I might be a bit crazy. Also because a friend of mine suggested that I do it before, or I don't remember the timing, but he mentioned that he had done the 24-hour one. And I saw in some other podcasts that some guy was doing a 7-day one. I call bullshit though. I don't think he did a week fast. I think he was probably doing an intermittent fast. Um, but yeah, I thought, yeah, fuck it. Like I wanted to try it. I wanted to see how it is to have that much hunger. I think it would be quite, you know, eye opening, I guess. Looking at it now, yeah, it is a bit eye opening. Like, fuck me, it sucks, dude. You should appreciate your food. Like, really, it really sucks to not have food on a regular basis, and especially if you can't have access to no food. But I actually don't know what's worse, to have a little bits of food here and there, or to have no food for some days. Because I remember reading that sometimes the fact that you get just a little bit of food, it somehow increases your hunger. Like it's psychologically worse. I don't know if this is true or not. I would have to test. But yeah, it sucks anyway. And the second reason why I wanted to do it is because I wanted to. It was kind of like a discipline exercise, like a mental discipline exercise. And this sounds insane, but yeah, I kind of did it to see if I could do it, like a challenge, and to test myself so that it would kind of like pass on to other things that I want to do, so I could fight through like hardship, and that's why I did it. So so yeah, I do suggest that you try the 24-hour one and let me know. And if you have any comments on this, go ahead. If you have any more questions, go ahead as well. I can answer all your questions. Mm. But now I want to get to the juicy part of this podcast, which is talking about, so we've talked a little bit about Toonitis. We talked a bit about about the fasting. And so I want, like, the logical next step is to talk about consistency itself. And how am I dealing with this then? If this is my fucking biggest flaw, you know, or one of my biggest flaws, I'm sure I have a lot of flaws. I don't think so personally, but I'm sure I have a few others. Um. So how do I handle it, and what do I think are the steps to work on it and become better at it? So first of all, I want to preface this by saying like what I'm actually doing right now. So I stopped smoking. It's been 2 months now, and I'm still on it. I stopped coffee. Also has been about 2 months. I think it was 3 months even. I stopped earlier than coffee, than smoking. Um, I've been working out about four or five times per week regularly. So I'm not breaking that. Mm, I'm trying to do a podcast every week, minimum one. Um, Before I had a project where I had to make some drawings for a competition that I had with some friends, and I wasn't too consistent there, but I did it all the way to the end, which was pretty good for me. Like sometimes I used to to stop projects midway. In the past, I've also trained and ran a half marathon. Um, yeah, which was cool. I kind of wish it was a marathon, but yeah, I'm not very good at running, to be honest. I would have to train a lot more. Um, and there's a few other things that I can't remember right now, but there's a few other things that I'm trying to do, um, which basically, they require consistency, and they're kind of like the whole idea of all of them is to improve this in myself because it's something that uh, I really like. Okay, quitting video games, but that one is not. I can't bundle it with the other ones because it's not a big effort for me now, as the other ones are. So basically, quitting habits, dropping bad habits, and acquiring good habits. Um, and yeah, so what did I want to say? So this is what I've done so far, and this is what I want to keep doing, and I want to keep doing in the future. I also just started guitar. I hope I can keep that one up because to be honest with you, like I'm musically inept, really. Like I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm just not very good. Mm. I'm not very good with musical instruments and all of that. But I picked up guitar again. Um, so here are my steps for increasing your consistency and sticking to a project or like an activity or something. So point number one, and it's pretty obvious, but I think a lot of people don't think about it so much. The first step I would say is enjoy the process and don't obsess over the end goal. And this was a huge mistake that I used to do, you know? So especially, I think the best example for this is actually guitar. Um, so what do I mean by this? I mean like when you pick up an activity and all you're thinking about is like how you want to be, someday super good at this activity. But the actual process, the things that you need to go through with the activity, you don't enjoy doing. This is a bad sign. This is something that you can't do, or you will require extreme amounts of willpower to ever reach that point that you want to reach. So in my opinion, you need to pick of course it's important to pick something that you see yourself doing in the future, For example, let's pick up the guitar example. I think a lot of people would like to have that experience of playing like an electric guitar and rocking out in a band or whatever, or it could be singing or, playing the piano. But then when it comes down to the actual practice, people find it boring. And personally, I found it boring as well. That's why I dropped many instruments. Like I liked the idea of myself being able to play songs and to be on stage and do all of this. But when it came down to, the actual process of grinding, I didn't like it. Like it's fucking boring, or it was fucking boring to me. And now that I picked up the guitar, I'm following some courses and I'm basically doing it in a way that yes, it requires work, but there are some fun things. Like you immediately start learning songs, and that kind of gives me some positive feedback because I feel like it's cool to play some songs that I know. So this is number one. You need to enjoy the process at least a bit. I'm not saying that you will always enjoy the process. There's definitely moments where you will not enjoy the process, but you need to enjoy the basics of it, like the core. For example, with exercise, if you want to have an exercise routine, you shouldn't pick a type of exercise that you absolutely hate. For example, I would never do swimming as a form of exercise because I don't like it. I fucking hate it. I have a trauma with water. It doesn't mean that I can't swim. I can swim. But I fucking hate it. I just don't like the feeling of not being able to breathe at certain moments. And I would never be swimming, for example, as a hobby. So, yeah, basically pick something that you enjoy, like in which you actually enjoy the process. So if you like drawing, or if you see yourself wanting to be an artist, first see if you a drawing artist, of course. See if you enjoy the process of drawing, even if you suck, even if your doodles are shit, that's fine. Do you enjoy it? Okay, cool. Do you enjoy the learning of it? Okay, cool. Now you're gonna go through some phases where it's gonna suck a bit, but at least you have that. That's number one. Then number two is you need to have goals, right? This is obvious, fucking obvious. But basically, you need to have like short-term goals and long-term goals. That's the way to keep yourself, um, on track. Because if you just say, for example, let's just say, oh, I want to be a guitarist. I want to be a fucking great guitarist. That's my goal. That's too abstract. It's not practical. It's not objective. What you should do is, for example, oh, I want to be, yes, my long-term goal is to be in a band. That's okay. My short-term goals are, I want to finish this guitar course, and I want to take lessons from this guitar teacher for X amount of months. I want to follow this YouTube course for, the entire duration. I want to be able to play these 5 songs, or I want to focus on this one song. And, there's many sub goals that you can put, like short-term goals that you can put in, that you need to put in, so that it's like the carrot on the stick thing. If the carrot is too far, like you're a horse, imagine. I suck with analogies, but imagine that you're a horse. If the carrot on the stick is too far, like you can see it, maybe you'll be interested. But if there's like, a desert in front of you and spikes and dead horses laying scattered around, you're probably not going to get that carrot, just sustain your dreams. But if someone keeps dangling the carrot in front of you, then you'll go through some short-term, some shorter problems. Then you can maybe nibble a little bit on the carrot. You get a little bit of that carrot juice. Actually, carrots don't have the juice inside, but yeah, you'll get a little bit of that carrot. And then you keep, going on your horse hooves, and you're like jumping over the corpses, and then you get another taste of the carrot. And that's how it should be. So you need short-term goals, long-term goals, and the goals should be divided into subtasks. So for example, with the marathon, with the half marathon, which was the first objective of my entire life where I was actually consistent. So it wasn't just the half marathon, right? Like I divided it into this. I need to be able to run 10 kilometers. I need to be able to run 15 kilometers in practice. So it was like 10. I had actually first it was 5, then 10, then 12, then 15. And for like the half marathon is 21 kilometers. So you don't need to actually practice the whole 21, because when you're there at the half marathon, you got all the hype, you're running with people and so on. So you can do, like, you got more adrenaline and you can do a lot more than you usually can. So usually you just need to train like around 3/4 of the distance. And that's what I did. And that worked for me. And for example, stopping smoking, I also had, or I even have right now, the goals of like, okay, I want to stop for 1 week, then 2 weeks, then 1 month. And then a friend of mine challenged me to do for 4 months. So that's another goal, which is not too far. If it was just, I want to stop smoking forever, it's a lot harder, So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is, this one is super common, okay? Which is avoid fluctuations. Okay, avoid fluctuating. Fluctuations of intensity. It's better to do a little many times than to do a lot sometimes and nothing other times. This one is extremely important because this is probably one of the main reasons why people quit an activity and they're not consistent is, or actually this is consistency, right? Like, okay, this is definitely directly linked to consistency. People, when they get a new activity, more often than not, they don't like have a plan that they follow step by step. What they do is they think, okay, I'm gonna exercise. So on today and tomorrow, I'm gonna fucking do 300 push-ups, and I'm gonna run 10 kilometers, and I'm gonna do this and that. And so they do it the first day maybe. And the second day they go in, fucking do it again. The third day they go in, they do it. They're super hyped. Fourth day, they can also do it. Then fifth day, maybe they feel a bit sick. Maybe they're a bit tired. Maybe not today. I don't think I can handle that intensity today. Yeah, maybe I won't do it today. And then the next day, they haven't done it for one day. So now they're like, yeah, I mean, looking back, I don't really want to, put in that much effort. And then they go for a few days where they don't do anything. And then maybe one day they're like, okay, today I feel inspired to do something. Let's go. I feel the motivation, that the whole idea of motivation, we can talk about this in another podcast, but the whole idea of motivation, it can be helpful to have, external motivation, but it's not that practical, it's just to kickstart you into starting a hobby, in my opinion. Like, you don't really need motivation to continue. So yeah, it's like if you keep like going through these phases of, high intensity stop, it's so taxing on you, on your body, and you don't form the habit, you don't form the habit. And basically you start looking at the activity that you're doing as a chore. It's no longer something interesting that you're working on. It's more like a chore. This is your chore. It's like fucking Sunday cleaning the house, No one wants to do it. No one wants to fucking do it, And that's how it becomes. And then you burn out. This is the problem. Like, I had this problem so many times. I would burn out consistently, like constantly. I would burn out constantly and on most things I did, because I thought, yeah, fuck it. I'm not like the others. I can do things super intensely, I really don't recommend following this way. In fact, now I take the opposite approach, which is kind of inspired on what my brother taught me or told me. It's much better to do little every day or many days than doing, this fluctuating thing. For example, sometimes you even have to stop yourself, in my opinion. So let's say that you're following a fitness program, or maybe I can get another example, like, let's see, some other hobby. No, but fitness is one of the best ones, because a lot of people use fitness as a goal, right? So let's say that you start some new program, and you start from the beginning, like you drop your ego and you start from the beginning, which is also important. Dropping your ego is really important. Like, you need to accept that you need to go through the baby phases, right? The baby steps. But you start at the beginning of the program, and you have a certain amount of actions that you need to do. Let's say you've got like 5 exercises, and you do them, but you feel like you can do a lot more. Don't do it. That's my opinion. Some people might disagree. My opinion is don't do it. Just be happy that you finished for that day. Keep that energy, use it tomorrow. Next day, you'll have these exercises. Maybe they're easy again. Don't do more. Just keep it for next time. You will get that energy reserve. It's like motivation for you. You're just thinking, fuck yeah, I can fucking do this. This is easy. I can keep doing this. And you start slowly forming the habit instead of going like all out all the time, It's seriously, it takes a lot of willpower to consistently go all out all the time. So yeah, that's one of the points that I wanted to talk about, and I think it's the most important point. But here's another point, and it's the last point, and this is also extremely important. And it takes work to do this, or it's boring to do this, but it's probably it's fucking hell, I can't talk. It's boring to do it, but the results it has are amazing. And you sometimes you see this in YouTube videos and whatever, and the first time I heard people doing this, I would squint my eyes a little bit and like, really? Like, do I really have to do this? Sounds super boring. But I kind of learned it through my shit job that I got in Berlin, like the first one. And the thing is, you should track your progress. You should track everything. So I learned this at my job, because my tyrant boss, he basically said, like, if you don't log in your work, if you don't report everything you've done, it's hard to get an idea of how much you're doing. If you can't compare yourself to what you've done before, it's hard to get an idea of what you're doing or what you've accomplished. And it's exactly the same with hobbies. So you need to have some kind of, it doesn't have to be a diary. It can be just a page where you write down how many times you practice something or what you've achieved, some kind of tracking of something. Like if you have your goals like decomposed, like I mentioned before, like for example, you want to swim. I don't know the distances for swimming yet. I suck at swimming, but let's say that you want to swim 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers, but you suck. Like you should register down the amount of kilometers you can do in one go, and every time you practice, you register that, And this is one example. With guitar, it could be, or guitar or piano or flute, oboe. I don't know what you play. It could be how many minutes you practice each day, or which songs did you practice, and maybe find a metric for how well you played it. If you're trying to lose weight, lose fat, get a body fat percentage. By the way, if you want to lose fat, you shouldn't look just at the weight. Definitely not. You have to look at the body fat percentage somehow. Even if it's kind of skewered, like if it's distorted, that's fine. You need to look at the body fat percentage for sure. Because people like obsess with the weight, but like weight really fluctuates a lot sometimes. And you can also lose muscle, instead of body fat. But anyway, find a way to find your body fat and mark it down. Like every week, do like measure yourself every week and mark it down. If you're going to the gym trying to build up muscle, right? And you're doing like, let's say, bench press or lat pull down or whatever, you got a certain amount of weight you're pulling or pushing, and you mark it down, and you just keep progressively registering everything you do. Registering, yeah, I don't know. Writing down everything that you're doing, and you think like it's a boring process, and it's actually a habit in itself, right? So if you're trying to already form a habit of going to the gym, now you have to form the habit of writing. But it's such an important accessory to what you're doing, because what will happen is you will be able to look back, see where you were, and see how you are now. If you don't have this, then you're just going by pure feeling. And what can happen is you might think you're better than you are, or you might think that you're worse than you are. You just don't have an accurate self-reflection, and people think that they can perceive themselves much better than they actually can. So in my opinion, it's super important to track stuff. And right now, I tell you, I track everything down. I don't give a shit. Like even the fucking cigarettes, I track down the amount of days that I haven't smoked, and same with almost everything else that I'm doing. And I think it makes a huge difference. So yeah, guys, that's all I wanted to say, actually. I don't really have much more to say. And I don't want to drag this. But yeah, I'm not a fucking guru. I'm not a life guru. This is my opinion. If you have anything that you want to counter, you want to give your own input, you want to add to this, you want to subscribe, you want to be a guest on the show, you have questions, please feel free to do so. And if you find like my opinions helpful, then that's fine. Next podcast. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say this. We have 11 guests lined up for the podcast, and we're willing to take more, of course. But I decided to space out the guests between podcasts, just to put a few solos in between, just to keep things fresh. So yeah, it will take a while until I go through all the guests, but please feel free to write to me if you wanna join. I would love to have like a wide variety of people to talk to, and yeah, awesome. Thanks for listening, and take care and stay consistent, stay disciplined. Fucking assholes.